So there's a lot of advice about sleep on YouTube. Some of it is good, some of it is bad, some of it is science-based, and some of it is completely made up. But what most of it has in common is that it's about what you do before you go to bed. It's about avoiding caffeine or making your room like a cave, and that's all kind of fine, but I have two main problems with that. One, sometimes that stuff isn't under your control, like you're sleeping on a plane or in someone else's house. And two, that doesn't address what you should do when you get to bed and you're actually trying to go to sleep. So I used to struggle a lot with not being able to get to sleep and then waking up in the middle of the night and not being able to get back to sleep. And what fixed both of those things are things that I did once I was already in bed. And so in this video, I'm going to talk about two science-based techniques I use to get to sleep, and then one technique I use to get back to sleep if I wake up in the middle of the night. They're all super simple, and the biggest benefit of them is that you can do them wherever you go. So if you're on a plane, if you're in a hotel, if you're sleeping on someone else's couch, you can still use them and you can still hopefully get a better night's sleep than you otherwise would. Okay, so sleep technique number one is something called box breathing. So this is apparently something that's taught to Navy SEALs to help them in stressful situations, and it's really very simple. You breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold that breath in for 4 seconds, you breathe out for 4 seconds, and then you hold on the exhale for 4 seconds. It's called box breathing because if you want to, you can imagine a little box with an arrow going around it for the different sections of the breath. And if it's too easy or too hard, you can obviously shorten or lengthen the exhales as you want. The idea is that it works because your nervous system is split into two branches. There's the sympathetic nervous system, the SNS, and there's the parasympathetic nervous system, or the PSNS. So the SNS is like your physiological accelerator, stimulating your fight or flight response. So it's getting your body to respond to threats like, it would have evolved to deal with like saber-toothed tigers and flash floods and things like that. The PSNS works like a braking system and calms your body down, so it does things like decreasing your heart rate and reducing your levels of the stress hormone cortisol. And the idea is that by slowing down your breathing rhythm and breathing through your nose, you're encouraging this parasympathetic nervous system to kick in. You're kind of telling your body that everything's under control, which is actually super helpful in lots of situations, but especially when you're trying to get to sleep. And honestly, there are loads of different breathing methods that you could use to do this. There's Iyengar breathing from yoga, there's something called tactical breathing, there's another system called 4-7-8 breathing, and they all just encourage long, deep, sort of mindful breaths. I like box breathing because it's easy to remember, and if you're visualizing the box, it has a kind of meditative quality all of its own, but really it doesn't matter what kind you use. So if you're struggling to sleep, just a few rounds of box breathing can kind of calm you down, you'll feel the effects immediately, and hopefully get to sleep faster. Okay, sleep technique number two is called progressive muscular relaxation, or P.M.R. So full disclosure, out of the three, this is probably the technique with the least scientific evidence to back it up. It was developed in the 1920s, and then it kind of got repopularized in the 1980s by a book called Relax and Win, which claimed that it was used with Special Forces soldiers. There have been a couple of studies on it, but it's certainly not as well established as the other two techniques I'm talking about today. So the idea is you're systematically relaxing all the muscle groups in your body. Now, there are versions of this that suggest you tense them first, but honestly, I've tried both, and there doesn't seem to be a huge difference between both styles to me, so I just worry about relaxation. So first, you're going to relax all the muscles in your face, like especially around your jaw and your eyes. I didn't think this was going to be a thing, but as soon as I tried it, I was suddenly really aware of all the tension that I've been holding in those places, kind of without realizing it. So next you're going to relax your shoulders, and this is kind of really noticeable if you're sleeping in an uncomfortable position. Like I've done this in airplane seats, and you'll find that you're holding your shoulders up like this really unconsciously a lot of the time, and just kind of dropping them and making a conscious effort to relax can make a huge difference. Next you're going to breathe out, relaxing your chest. And then you're going to intentionally relax your legs, starting at the thighs and working your way down. And then finally, you're going to think about one of the following images. Either you're lying in a canoe on a calm lake with nothing but a clear blue sky above you, or you're lying in a black velvet hammock in a pitch black room. So at this point, the book actually suggests that you think, don't think for 10 seconds. But actually, I find that super counterproductive. It's like when somebody says, don't think about pink elephants, and suddenly that's all you can think about. So I would probably disregard that advice. And then finally, sleep technique 3 is what I use to get back to sleep if I wake up in the middle of the night. And I call that one taming your inner chimp. So to explain this one a little bit, sometimes I just wake up in the middle of the night and completely freak out. And I don't think I'm alone in this. And it can be about a lot of different things. Sometimes I worry that the economy is going to crash, or all the bees are going to die, or a super intelligent AI is going to make us into jam, or that my house is going to get flash flooded, or that the Gulf Stream is going to reverse itself, or like 1,000 different things. And some of these are rational and some of them aren't. And some of them I can do something about and some of them I can't. But the one thing they all have in common is there's not much point in worrying about them in the middle of the night. And so I got the fix for this from Professor Steve Peters, who's worked with a lot of high-level athletes and kind of sports teams, and also written a book called The Chimp Paradox. And he suggests thinking of the brain as 3 separate parts. So there's the human, which is the frontal lobe, which is responsible for rational decision-making and logic. So that's the part that wants you to be happy and content, and it's what people think of as the real them a lot of the time. So then there's the computer, or the parietal system, which is spread throughout the brain and stores values, beliefs and behaviours, and acts really, really quickly with basically no conscious input from you. It just runs the programs it's already got. And then there's the chimp, or the limbic system, which offers emotional responses to situations, and they can be positive or negative, but in this case they're probably negative. Now, Professor Peters' book is excellent and it deals with a lot more than just sleeping well, and I really recommend reading it. But for what we're talking about right now, I think the most important points to understand are these. 1, the chimp is stronger than you, and 2, the chimp is not good or bad, it is just a chimp. So how does this relate to waking up in the middle of the night and freaking out? Well, the whole point is that the chimp is stronger than the human, so any attempt to kind of shout him down is just not going to work. So if you respond to worrying about, I don't know, Gulf Stream reversal by telling your brain to shut up because it's time to sleep, that is just going to make the chimp crazier, and you are probably in for a long night with no sleep. So what Professor Peters would suggest is that rather than trying to ignore or overpower the chimp or kind of dismiss his concerns, which you simply can't do, you kind of accept them as valid because it is, after all, your own limbic system kind of freaking out about things that are essentially quite important to a part of you. So the idea is when the chimp is on the loose and going crazy, you accept its concerns. You go, okay, these are valid points. These are things that maybe I should be worrying about, but there are no positive actions I can take on them right now because it's 2 o'clock in the morning. If I still think they're valid when I wake up, I'll look at whether there are things that I could be doing, actions I could take in place to deal with them. And go, look, if these things still feel like a concern in the morning, we'll talk about them then. And honestly, this is something that's helped me out a lot. I used to worry about this stuff a ton. I still worry about it sometimes, but I don't lose sleep over it. So if I could give you the super simple version of this, you acknowledge the chimp's concerns, you let him know that this isn't the time, and you tell him that if he's still concerned in the morning, you are going to get right on whatever he's worried about. And that's it. Those are my 3 techniques for better sleep. Now, there are lots of other valid things you could be doing. There's a ton of other advice elsewhere, but these are the ones that I really suggest you use because they're super simple and you can use them wherever you go and whenever. And they really do work. Please give them a try. Let me know how they go in the comments. I'd love to hear from you.